Hey y'all, it's Asterius here, and welcome back. Well, it's more of a welcome back for me, because I've been, gone for, a month doing some stuff. I got my COVID vaccination, so I was able to travel a little bit. I finally got to officially graduate. I officially graduated a year ago, but I was able to walk, so I got to go back to Texas, do some cool stuff, so I got to see my friends, and some of that stuff that I did, I'm gonna do some videos about. So, not very good at vlogging. Gonna just try and make this work. I have some videos from when I was at these different places, and one of the places that I was at was the Menger Hotel. So the Menger Hotel is in San Antonio, Texas, and it is claimed to fame as it's one of the, or if not the most haunted hotel in all of Texas. It's really freaking old. It was built right next to the Alamo, so there's obviously just the ground itself has a lot of turmoil, a lot of probably lost souls in it anyways, and so I got to go stay there. I had some spooky experiences, which I'm gonna do a little video about later, but today I want to do the video about the history of it, so you know what I'm talking about once I start talking about the spooky stuff that happened and where we were in the hotel and that kind of thing. So the hotel was built in 1859, right next to the Alamo, so it was 23 years, just 23 years after it fell. It was built by actually a German immigrant, which I didn't actually know until I got back from the trip, but it kind of is interesting since one of my majors was German and I'm all in the German world. Anyways, so Menger, the man, not the hotel, actually started as a brewmaster, which makes total sense because German, right? So they started a brewery with one of his friends. His partner was Charles Philipp, and he was another actual German brewmaster. It was the first brewery in Texas. The brewery that they made was the Western Brewery, and it was not only the first brewery in all of Texas, but by 1978 it had also grown to become the largest operating brewery in the Lone Star State as well. He actually bought out a different brewery in Texas and ended up getting the nickname the Beer King, which is a pretty dope nickname. So the brewery itself that he had, it was actually built on the site of the Alamo. The Alamo, I don't know if you've ever been there, you know it's a really small, it's so much smaller than you think it is. And the area around it is where a lot of the battle happened. So that's the area which he bought to build his brewery. And right behind it, still on the property where the Battle of the Alamo was fought, was a boarding house that was owned by a widow. So as it turns out, the widow that owned this brewery was one of the first people that Mr. Menger met when he got to San Antonio. He actually ended up staying at Mary, that's her name, the Mary's boarding house for 3 years when he first got there. After those 3 years, he eventually convinced Mary to marry him, and they expanded the boarding house. And with the expansion, they decided that they wanted to turn the boarding house into a hotel, and they wanted it to be grand. They wanted it to be this amazing hotel, and it was thriving. They named it the Menger Hotel. So it's basically, when they expanded it over the brewery. So it was just this really big plot of land right smack dab next to the Alamo. It's the next door neighbor. That is just hotel and then the brewery, and so their businesses were thriving. They were having a really great time. So apart from the Alamo, the Battle of the Alamo, the spirits that could be haunting the Alamo and also could have moved into the Menger afterwards, there were other significant things that happened that could cause some ghostly activity. One of those being the Civil War. So during the Civil War, obviously no one's staying at fancy hotels or anything like that, so they ended up transforming the hotel to be a hospital for all the wounded Civil War soldiers. So many, as you can believe, passed away in the Menger Hotel, which means that possibly their spirits could also still be there, if that you believe in that kind of thing. So not only did Civil War soldiers die there, but Menger himself actually also died in 1871. The entire city mourned this guy. He was super popular, he was well loved, well liked, but despite him dying, Mary did not hesitate. She just kept going. It was nothing happened to the Menger Hotel. It was flourishing still. It probably helped Mary some that the trains and depot station was expanded in San Antonio, so a lot more people were coming in and needing to stay at a hotel. So obviously she had lots of business. In 1 year alone, there were about 2,000 guests in the hotel, which is a lot back then. By the 1970s, after Menger had passed away, she started adding like modern things to the hotel, which one of the things I actually got to see, I didn't realize until I got back what I was seeing. I kind of figured it out, but basically if you go to like the elevators in the part of the hotel I stayed in, there are these like really big like shafts going down the wall, and they have little slots in them, and it was for the mail. So if you go into the lobby area, you can see this really big like thing attached to the wall that says mail on it, and that's where all the cards would go down and to be collected for the mailman to come. So in 1881, it was sold by Mary because apparently her son didn't want to inherit it. It was actually sold to the first contractor that built the hotel itself, so that's pretty interesting. And the new guy, Capman, he actually is the one who installed the bar that is there today. And so that's pretty much all the history we have until about 1924. There's a pretty big gap in the history. I'm assuming it's just kind of same old day-to-day stuff. But in 1924, there was a fire. So it's kind of interesting to me. So what happened was there was a fire. It was like the middle of the night. The clerk at the hotel front desk went around and started knocking at everyone's doors, got everyone out. Everyone was fine. And the injuries didn't come from the fire itself. People were actually injured when the fire truck was trying to get to the hotel to put out the fire, and it ran into other cars and ended up causing this giant accident and hurting and killing some people. So the fire itself technically did kill people, but not in the normal way, which is interesting. I don't know if the spirits would be connected to the hotel because of that, because, you know, it was kind of the hotel's fault for them being on fire, or if it would just, you know, they'd be connected to, I don't know, just interesting stuff. So the original section of the hotel during the fire was not damaged, but the newer sections of the hotel were very, very damaged, and they had to rebuild a lot of the stuff. But thankfully, because business was going so well, it was still the 20s, right before the Depression, they were able to rebuild stuff back to what it looked like before. Quite a few famous people visited the hotel. For some reason, some people think that because these people visited the hotel, that their ghosts could still be lurking around. I think that's kind of interesting, because that's makes you think, okay, well then that means ghosts can travel, ? And they don't get like stuck one place. Also, they would decide to travel to the Menger, which, like, if I was a ghost, I don't think I could see myself traveling to a hotel that I stayed in a couple nights out of my life just because I liked it there a little bit. I don't know, maybe hotels were a different experience back then or something, but it just seems a little silly to me. I don't even know if I'd travel to half the places I lived if I was a ghost. One of those people is Teddy Roosevelt. They think, people say they see him in the bar trying to recruit more Rough Riders for his outfit. I think it's kind of silly, but hey, I didn't see him, but I didn't actually get to go into the bar, but that's a story for next video. There were actors, there were the political men, there's generals, General Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, authors, Oscar Wilde actually stayed at the Menger, royalty, and like 11 presidents called this historic hotel their abode for a while. One of the most famous guests, which is my favorite guest of all, is a guy named Bill. So early on in the 1900s, there was a fair performer, and somehow he forgot his pet alligator at the Menger. And instead of trying to, like, I don't know, call animal control if that was a thing back then, or having some crazy dude that's crazy enough to wrestle an alligator grab the alligator and take it to a body of water somewhere, they decided to just go with it and keep the alligator on the premises, and it was just their pet. They actually named him after the performer that left him, so it was Bill the alligator that was left. And if the Bill was good, they would actually bring in other alligators to, like, hang out with him, to be his friend, I guess. It was just like a thing at the Menger that, you know, Bill the alligator lives there. If you're gonna go to the Menger, you're probably gonna see an alligator. He not only was like a guest there, or pet for the people that worked there, but he also just had free reign. So, like, you could be going along and like, I want to get some breakfast or go to the bar or something, and then there's just an alligator just roaming around. So it wasn't until 1980 that the Menger was awarded the state historical marker. and it has been listed on the National Trust for Historic Preservation. In my opinion, very humble, not so knowledgeable opinion, it was really well kept up. I mean, when we went into the bathrooms and stuff, like, it was all super old, and I felt like I was back when I lived in San Antonio. We lived in like a 1930s house, and it kind of felt like that vibe. Like, it was very historic. It felt like I was back in time all of a sudden. So now for the fun part of the Menger, the hauntings, of course. So there is quite a few reportings of hauntings, and I will get into my own hauntings later. But some of the interesting ones that did not happen to me, kind of unfortunately, but fortunately, I'm not really sure. Beds levitate off the ground. They'll hear strange rapping noises. They'll see like translucent faces in the mirrors. They'll see like, shapes of people, but like they're like black masses almost, or even light masses, that kind of thing. They'll like smell cigar smoke, which, like, come on, that could just be left over from someone who wasn't supposed to be smoking in the room, but could have been smoking. Doors opening, just that kind of thing. Just like the basic sort of stuff. And then, of course, there's like specific ghosts that people say they see. Like I said earlier, the ghost of Teddy Roosevelt is said to be in the Menger, which I think is silly, but whatever. Teddy Roosevelt was known for hanging out at the Menger, seeing cowboys and rangers and random folk who wandered into the bar to get drunk. He would buy them drink after drink after drink, get them really, really drunk, and then have them agree to become Rough Riders, and the next morning, all of a sudden, they were at boot camp. So that was kind of what he was known for doing at the Menger bar. So he was recruiting them for the Spanish-American War, and all the ones that survived the war actually ended up meeting back at the Menger for a reunion from, after everything happened. They went back to the place they were recruited to have a reunion, which is kind of cute. So there is some attachment for Teddy to be at the Menger Hotel, so I could kind of understand his ghost being there. But again, with does the ghost travel? Is it like a stone tape situation where because he was there for so long doing these things that you're just seeing like almost like a memory of him playing out? Or I don't know, just seems a little weird to me. One of the other ghosts is a chambermaid, so like a hotel worker. So she worked at the hotel. She was pretty well liked by everyone at the hotel, and she was being abused by her husband. She lived like 2 blocks away from the Menger, and she actually went to the police to report him, but because they like went and searched and everything and didn't find anything, they couldn't charge him with anything, so she had to keep going back and living with him. And then finally one evening he lost it and was trying to kill her, was threatening to kill her, so she started running to the Menger, and he ended up shooting her. So he ended up shooting her and killing her. She ended up dying actually. One of the I think it was the 3rd level of the original part of the hotel. So her ghost is actually known to haunt that level of the hotel, and basically she's kind of just chilling, doing her job, what she used to do back in the day. So if you see like some hotel person walking around in like old clothes and carrying sheets and stuff, it's probably her. She's known to like straighten out people's beds while they're still in them, which is a little freaky, and like knock on doors and that kind of thing. Fun fact about Sally, the chambermaid, they actually paid for her funeral, the hotel did, so kind of cool. One other guy that is said to be seen at the hotel is the King Ranch guy. So I was like looking into this, and I was trying to figure out why King Ranch sounded so familiar to me, and then I remembered that's freaking, if you Ford F-250s, you can get the King Ranch edition. Anyways, that's this guy. Apparently he haunts the Menger. He actually ended up dying in his like hotel suite that they actually named after him before he even died, because he stayed there so often. He wasn't a real king, even though his name was Richard King. He was a cattle baron king, hence the ranch part of his name. So because he stayed so often for like business trips and stuff, that's why they named his suite after him. When he started to die of stomach cancer, he for some reason decided to stay at the Menger while he was dying, which sure, I guess. And he passed away in that suite. And you can actually stay in the room that he died in also in the bed that he died in, which teach their own, I guess. So those are like the main like known ghosts, like name recognition kind of thing. Most of the other ghosts, it's just we assume that they're there from either dying from the Civil War in the hospital when it was a hospital, or maybe in the Alamo, the fight for the Alamo since it's on the same ground, or in the various shootouts that happened. I mean, it was almost basically the West back then. There was plenty of shootings and that kind of thing happening all the time. So do you think the Menger's haunted? I'm not sure. Probably, given all the amount of stories that people have and the things people say, and the vibes of the hotel when you like walk into it, especially the older part of the hotel. So let me know what you think. Maybe you'll have more of an opinion after my experience is shared. Maybe you just don't care at all. Let me know down in the comments. Subscribe if you like. And that's, I guess, what I'm into this week.